bring you up to speed about a story we were made aware of within the last hour or so. A developing story at that. A U.S. district judge has found probable cause that the Trump administration acted in contempt of court when officials last month defied his order to turn around two planes carrying alleged Venezuelan gang members to El Salvador. The judge stated that the administration, quote, made a solemn mockery of the Constitution itself. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is criminal defense attorney Mr. Dante Mills, back here on the Live Zone. Always good to see you, Dante.
God, good to see you. Good afternoon.
All right, so let's jump into this first story, which is rather interesting. As you heard me state within the past hour or so, that U.S. district judge stating that the Trump administration acted in contempt of court. Yet again, this surrounds the administration ignoring the judge's order to turn around not one but two flights carrying more than 200 alleged gang members. The question is, Mr. Mills, how did this come to be and what happens next?
Yeah, so let's just kind of go back a little bit to the situation where the judge, it was a Saturday, said that the administration was not allowed to send these people to another country in that plane. After that order came out, there was a verbal order given and then a written order from the judge. In the in-between time, one of the planes took off before the written order came down. But after it came down, another plane took off. And what the Trump administration said is, we weren't aware that this order was in place. The plane was already in the air. There was nothing we could do at that time because it was already over international waters. That turns out not to be true. In fact, they were aware of the judge's order before these planes landed in Honduras and had the ability to bring these planes back, but decided not to. And the judge said, I'm going to give you some time to tell me what happened, show me what happened, to show that you did not blatantly disregard my order. They couldn't do that. They didn't produce any evidence to show that their actions were not blatant and voluntary and intentional. And as a result, the judge found them in contempt. The judge is still giving them an opportunity to cure the contempt by showing him what they did that was responsive to his order, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that. They just decided they didn't want to follow his order, so they didn't.
And so if one cannot produce evidence to state that and or show that they were not in contempt, what happens then?
That's the big question. What can this judge do? It's Department of Justice attorneys. I mean, he can fine them. It's going to be the government paying those fines. He can, I don't know if he goes so far as to recommend them for any kind of suspension or anything like that of their legal license. I just don't know realistically, and we're talking practically, what he can do in this situation, because they're going to have a deep pocket, the Department of Justice supporting them and saying, listen, do what we tell you to do, attorneys, and we will back you up. We will pay whatever the fines are, and you'll be okay. So really, the judges, he may put himself in a situation where he's calling their bluff, they don't respond, and there's nothing that he can do about it. Wow. And that's not going to be a good look, because that's going to embolden the administration to do more, because they know there's really no punishment that's going to harm them. And that's the situation that I think is brewing here with this administration and how they're responding to these district court judges' decisions.
All right. Well, speaking of district court judges' decisions, let's move on to the other top story, and that happens to surround the Maryland man who currently remains imprisoned in El Salvador. We know that earlier today, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, well, he actually landed in El Salvador, where he hopes to meet with leaders about the possible release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He spoke at Dulles Airport before taking off. Take a look.
This is about the rule of law. This is about due process. This is about not letting people be just whisked off the street, which the Trump administration admits was done in error. And I just want people to think about what that means. I mean, you know, you go out, you get disappeared. They say they did it in error, but they're not helping bring you back from the prison that they sent you to. That's a nightmare for anybody in America.
All right, we can tell you that since that time addressing the media, if you will, that he has landed in El Salvador. He has spoken with the media, posted several times to social media, and yet again hopes to meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia. We should also add that within the last 3 hours or so, the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi released a statement saying, quote, Abrego Garcia is not coming back to our country. This despite a judge telling attorneys to cancel their vacations and appointments and be prepared to show their work as to what, if anything, the government has done to comply with her order. Dante, yet again, a lot to unpack here, and I guess the first question is, how do we get to this situation, and I guess in your world, what's going to happen next?
We get here because this administration has no empathy. They have no heart. That's just the bottom line. We're talking about someone who had a warrant of non-removal. He could not be removed to El Salvador, and that a judge decided that after a hearing where that judge heard evidence of who Mr. Garcia was and what harm he was in if he went back to El Salvador. Despite that, this administration, they say mistakenly, sent him to, not only just deported him from the United States, which happens, they sent him to one of the worst prisons in the world. And now that they acknowledged he wasn't supposed to go there, they refused to bring him back. My concern, and this is an honest concern that I share with a lot of people on the Hill that I've spoken to in DC, the fear is he's dead already. That's just the honest fear. Because it's one of the worst prisons in the world, and there was a reason why he had that warrant of non-removal. So we hope that that's not the case, but the Trump administration saying they're not going to do anything to fix their mistake is a huge problem and just shows that lack of empathy. They don't care about him as a person, and that is going to spill over into us as people, and we shouldn't let that happen.
We know that Congressman Glenn Ivey, who just spoke moments ago, made mention of the Trump administration carrying out what he described as character assassination surrounding Mr. Abrego Garcia, stating that what they are saying in front of the podium, in essence, they would not say in a courtroom because, yet again, they would be held in contempt. I'm curious, your take on that.
They are doing that. So there's a couple of things that they're saying at the podium that they would not say in the courtroom. One, just all of these allegations because they can't be proven in court. And in fact, Mr. Garcia was in court and there was an opportunity for these allegations to be proven and they weren't. A judge decided that he was not a violent gang member, that he was not a member of that gang and was not in a position where he should be deported to El Salvador. So they're saying things across that podium that they can't prove in court, and also just trying to say he's so bad that we can make mistakes and not try to fix it, and it's okay. That's never going to be fair. That's never going to be right. Everybody should have a process where if there's an allegation against them, they should have the ability to prove that it's not true at a minimum, let alone the other person proving the allegation itself. Mr. Garcia has the right to say, that's not me, who you're saying I am. That's not me, and it shouldn't happen to me. So I think this is a situation that it's going to come down to the moral character of this country. Who are we as a nation? Are we someone that says we don't like people so much that we're willing to send them to prison to die just off of an allegation, despite the fact that there's no evidence to suggest they did anything wrong at all? And are we okay with that? Are we just going to allow that if this administration says they're not going to do anything to bring them back?
Yeah, the next thought process would probably be, if that could happen to him, could it happen to me? Which leads me to the next question.
Well, we already heard President Trump saying that he wants homegrowns, as he calls them, criminals that he believes, and he listed out a couple scenarios, criminals whose United States citizens shipped to that same prison. So if they do that by mistake, if they send a United States citizen there, are they going to refuse to bring them back if they made an error in that situation?
Yeah, yet again, this is something I have never seen anything of the like, Dante, something that, quite honestly, I'm pretty sure we will be studying for quite some time. Yet again, we know that Senator Van Hollen is on the ground in El Salvador. Congressman Glenn Ivey stating earlier that he, too, would like to visit and request the release of this man. It seems and it appears as though a number of lawmakers are now lining up to state that, well, they want to bring this guy back home.
As they should, and the support is good. The legal system should have control here. There is a restriction, though, and the Supreme Court did not mandate that they bring him back because they can't. They can't cross that line and mandate or dictate foreign policy. And what if the president of El Salvador does say, I'm not sending him back? Now, we know Donald Trump has the ability to influence the president of El Salvador. And if Donald Trump says, I want him back, it's going to happen. Right? We're paying almost $6 million to El Salvador to run that prison. So he's going to give him back if the Trump administration tells him to. But if he doesn't, the Supreme Court can't force the United States to say take military action to get him back. So they will never be in a position to be able to mandate they bring him back. And we know if they don't, the Trump administration is going to say, well, we tried to facilitate, which is the word the Supreme Court used. They told us no, so there's nothing we can do. And in fact, they said, if he shows up at the border, we'll let him in. Otherwise, we're not doing anything. And that to me just means they have no intention on bringing him back, no intention on following the Supreme Court's guidance. And they're taking this stance and making it clear that they're going to do whatever they want, no matter who tries to stand up against them.
And so we'll end with this in layman terms, Dante. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the judge yesterday, in so many words, stated that the Trump administration to get their act together and respond with regard to answering questions that judge has, also providing paperwork to a certain extent. I guess the question is, will that happen? Will they respond and do just that?
No, and we're back to the same situation with the other case we spoke about, where maybe contempt the court is an answer, but what do you do with it? If the judge says, what are you doing to bring Mr. Garcia back? And they say, well, I can't answer that question. What happens now? Nothing. There are very few limitations because the law did not, just didn't anticipate that a leader of a nation would act so cavalier. It just didn't anticipate that. The assumption was people will follow the law. And if a judge has the authority to say, hey, give me these answers, that the lawyer would do it. But if Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice is saying we're not answering your questions, there's really nothing built in other than a fine that will persuade them to do so. So we're in it. We may just be in a situation where it's a stalemate, and the Trump administration is saying we're not going to listen to the judicial system. We're more important than them. What they say doesn't matter, and there's nothing you can do about it. And what does the country do then? What does we as Americans do then? Because that's the situation we're coming upon. It's really happening now. It's a reality.
Yeah, well, according to Maryland Congressman Glenn Ivey, this could very well end up back in the courts with regard to the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll have to wait and see. Yet again, we have been speaking with Mr. Dante Mills, attorney extraordinaire, joining us right here on the Live Zone. Truly appreciate your patience and time, sir.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.